Hello and welcome to another tutorial. In this one we are going to create the Bifrost material you might know from the Thor, the Marvel movies. In Norse mythology, Bifrost is a burning rainbow bridge that reaches between Midgard and Asgard. And when we do a quick image search for Bifrost and Thor, we can find pictures like these. So for example, let's analyze this quickly. Basically, we have a rainbow going across the bridge. Then we have those glowing lines stretched out along the direction of the bridge, and they use the same color as the rainbow. And then we have like a second level of detail where we have different colors, like for example this bright yellow line here. It's a little shorter than the long lines that we have all over here. And also the whole thing is animated. Let's jump into Blender. I'm using 2.81. Delete the cube, add a mesh, go into edit mode, scale Y10. This is going to be our bridge. Let's Alt G and R the camera, rotate X90, then move it on the Y, move it up on the C a little. Let's look through the camera here. Rotate on the X. So this is going to be our setup. Basically the camera, we're standing on the bridge, looking down the bridge. I'm switching over to EEVEE, switch off overlays, go to the world, make it black. What can we do with this lamp? Maybe move it back here, duplicate it over here. And now we can set up the material. So select the bridge, new material. I'm just gonna switch over to the shader editor right here. For the main shader, we're just gonna leave the principled. And looking at these images here, or maybe look at this image, what we get is a basic texture that is on the bridge. So if this is like glass, we get this varying roughness. And it's also stretched out, you know, like scratches going along the bridge. So let's do that. We are gonna need a noise texture for that. So texture, noise texture, plug that. I'm using the node wrangler, so Control Shift left click gives me a preview. I have to stretch this out, so Control T. Use the object coordinates for this and stretch it out. Maybe get more detail in on the x-axis and then on the y. So we get something like this. Now we're gonna plug in a color ramp and bring up the contrast a little. Like so, and if I plug that into the roughness of the principled node, then we get this kind of texture. Now we can play with this even more, get more detail. Something like this. You know, there is no exact rule. I'm just trying to make it look interesting. Okay, so this is going to be our roughness for the principled shader. So next we're gonna need the rainbow going from left to right. The easiest way to create a rainbow generally in Blender is to use a color ramp, set the first color to R1 and GB0, so perfect red. Copy this, go to this one, paste it, and then set this to hue saturation value and take the far way along the color, around the color wheel. So we're going from red to red, but the far way, so we're going full turn around the color wheel, which is a perfect rainbow. Now if I plug that into my base color here, it's just gonna turn like teal, this teal bluish color in the middle here, because we don't have a factor yet. We're gonna have to set this factor to be the rainbow colors going across here, and we can do that with an input geometry node. Then we take the position, we separate it into its x, y, and z. And now if I plug the x in here as the factor, we already get something rainbowish looking. Now when we work with factors or coordinates like this, we can always take a converter math node, set to multiply, and duplicate it and set it to add. And using this now as our factor, the multiply acts like a magnifying, or as the scale basically. So here we can scale this this gradient, and here we can move the gradient from left to right. And I believe that scaling it 0.5 and moving it 0.5 already gives us the perfect rainbow across here. So this is going to be the base color for our principled shader. Now this is a little bit strong. I just want a little tiny bit of an effect, because most of the color comes from those glowing stripes. So I'm just going to take a color hue saturation node in here and bring down the saturation maybe a little bit. Maybe play with this a little and take down the specularity a little. Okay, now how do we make those stripes, those colorful stripes? Well, same idea as with this setup here for the noise. Let's maybe just take this, duplicate it up here, take the same color ramp, plug this in here, and when we look at this with Control Shift left click with the node wrangler, we get the preview, which gives us this, but that's not what we want. We want just no, this is not right. Anyway, what do I want? I want an emission shader, and the emission color should be this, and then I have to color mix in black, and now use this as the factor. So actually I can use this for the coordinates of my rainbow, and just use this as the factor for my emission shader. So when I bring down this slider on the gradient, I get a lower amount of stripies. And now again with these settings here, I can stretch out the stripes, I can change the X scale, maybe make them like so, make them bigger. I don't know, this is just a matter of playing around. Now this is all going into an emission shader, where we can turn up the strength to, let's say, 20, and of course switch on bloom to make it look a lot more interesting. Turn up the amount even more. So these are the lines that we're getting. Why is this pulsing like this? This is weird. I don't know if this shows up in the recording, but on my screen this here is like pulsing for some strange reason. Okay, now just a quick recap. So I'm using the same gradient based on the same... Actually, I don't even need this node, I can just use this color. So I'm using the same rainbow color that I have on the bridge in general. I'm mixing it with a black color, and for the mix factor I'm using this setup based on a noise texture stretched out just like before, so that we get those glowy stripes. And now all we really have to do is take shader mix shader and mix those two together. And we can switch out this mix shader with Shift S and make it an add shader, so that we're adding the glow on top of our base bridge. Okay, play with these values a little. Oh, come on, move. And we set the strength even brighter so we get nice glowing lines. Okay, so this is the first level of detail. Now, like I said before, there is a second level of detail with different colors. So maybe we want some like yellow spots in here. How do we do that? Very easy. Let's copy this setup of our rainbow. Move it up here. Now let's look at this. This is the rainbow. Like I said, with the multiply, I can change the scale of my rainbow, and with the add, I can move it left and right. But we can see that we always only have that one rainbow. And in order to get the rainbow repeating all over the place here, we just need another math node set to modulo with a value of 1, which just means that our gradient, our x value, is now going from 0 to 1, and then again from 0 to 1, and again from 0 to 1. So we're kind of repeating through this rainbow gradient over and over again. Now all we have to do is push it off to the left. It doesn't matter where, it just has to be over to the left. So now we have a different rainbow setup. Oops, for our second level of glowy lines. Now we need to create a second set of glowing lines. Just take this and duplicate it up here and mix this together. For example, we can use the same emission shader, just mix in these lines, plug it all in to the shaders. So now, what do we have? Takes a while to update. So now we get this. Let's see. So this is our first set of lines that we've set up before. And this is the second set now, which we can move. We can scale, maybe make them like shorter like this. Scale them on the X, make a sort of like spots like that. And play with all of these settings. I don't know, make them even brighter. Can make more or less by changing this gradient. I don't know, you know, just make it look interesting. Okay, now those stripes look cool and fine, but we need to add some more noise to them, some more texturing. We have to break them up a little. And of course we can do that again with more noise textures. So let's see, this gives us these stripes that go into the emission shader. So maybe I just copy this noise texture. In here. Let's check out what that looks like. Bring up the scale. Pipe that through another color ramp. Bring up the contrast quite a bit. Something like that. And then multiply that onto here. So we have the stripes somewhere. No, this is the stripes, and I have to multiply the noise onto the stripes, so we get this. So now our stripes have this pattern on top of them. So we can use this pattern to break up those stripes a little. And we use this for the emission. Emission goes in here, and this is the material output. I have to align this a little so that we know what's going on. And now you can see that our larger stripes now have this noise pattern multiplied on top of them. So by changing this, I can change the noise texture, can add more detail, just to break this up a little bit, make it not so uniform looking. One last thing we have to do is animate this. So how do we do that? You can see here, if I go here and move the location, I can change the X, I can change the Y, and this is exactly what we're gonna use to animate this. So what we want is we want to move the Y location towards the back, so going up, right? Increasing this value. I'm just gonna plug in a driver in here, so click in here, hashtag, take the frame and divide it by 100, for example. Let's see what that looks like when we hit play. Looks very nice. Maybe this is a little too fast. So let's change this and divide it by 200. And now this moves slowly. But I think it looks weird because it's just the same spots moving towards the back. You know, it doesn't change the pattern, or it doesn't look very interesting. So in addition to this, I think I'm also going to play with this here. See the rotation. So I'm changing the mapping of the noise texture and I'm changing the rotation. I can change the X, I can change the Y. It doesn't really matter. I shouldn't change the C, that looks weird. So I'm gonna leave that or set it all to 0 and also plug in a driver in here. Frame divided by 300. So, this is too fast. This is way too fast. So let's divide this by 700. Ooh, now we have it moving towards the far end of my screen or my scene. And I get a change in the pattern. All of this is still too fast for my taste. So let's do something like that. Oh, now it looks nice. Cool. And now we do the same thing for this pattern, for the long thin stripes here. So now everything is moving towards the back. Only this pattern here, the roughness pattern, is staying the same. Yep, now the roughness pattern is changing as well. And that's it. Now, does this look like exactly like in the movie? Nope. But this is a tutorial and it's supposed to give you an idea how you can create something using these techniques. Using noise patterns and changing their mapping, stretching stuff and moving stuff, using color ramps to get the stripes, basically just increasing detail or contrast, and putting it all together, taking the emission shader for the stripes, have some sort of base principled shader for the base material, and with a little bit more tweaking you can render out something that looks like this. So all I've done here is add some volumetrics, add some lights in the scene, and then fade out the bridge towards the back, which is basically also done with the volumetrics. And that's it. I hope you liked this tutorial. I hope you got a basic idea of what you need to do to get this effect going. If you learned something new, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon. Check out my Patreon, where you can, of course, download the finished blend file. Thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial. Chris P. out.